real dedicated to our show.
Love it. Right,
So
we're
Frizzle,
on. We're on.
okay.
Inspiration Nation. Hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast. Jose Noya, Ryan Boniface, full house here, as well as some regulars on TikTok as well. We appreciate them all being there. If you want to get involved with the show, interact what happened, hear us roasting Joe before the show starts. I don't have roasting still a word the kids use today, but I'm using it anyway. Just follow Jose on TikTok or YouTube, hit subscribe, get notified when going live. Jose Noya, Inspiration Nation in your Google machine, and you will get a page full of Joe. What more could you want? What more could you want? Right, so without wasting any more time for people to drop off while we're just rambling, whose subject is it this week and what are we talking about? We normally plan this. No, I did last week.
Yeah, you said because right, Frizzle and Cloud9. Lee has not been here for a while, so Ryan definitely raised a good point last week about you haven't been here for long, so I think it's definitely your turn.
Oh, what? Right, okay.
I think
you're prepared already. I know you're prepared anyway.
I think it's mine.
Is it yours?
I've prepared.
Oh, okay.
That's good because I actually haven't. I had some. I was going to run off the top of my head.
I didn't think you had. Last week you said I think it's actually Ryan's turn, but he was like, you said I want to do a talk about the new year and things like that, and I was like, sweet, I'm off the hook for a week. And I sat there about 45 minutes ago, and I was like, bugger, it's my week. So I thought I'd lean on something that we were talking about last week and something that what I kind of referenced last week, or something that I promised to be better with, and that was talking about kind of being better to myself or being nicer to myself.
This is exactly what I was going to talk about if it was my week this week. This is exactly what I was going to talk about as well. So good.
Those of you that think I don't pay attention most weeks, I actually do. And I've actually even dug out a quote. I've even found a quote for it as well.
Right.
So I'm ticking all the boxes.
Not only are we got the same subject in mind, but you're going to do it better than I would do as well. I love it.
This is awesome.
The quote is by Elisa M. And I don't know anything about Lisa Hayes. She might be really famous, and I'm just underselling it massively. And the quote is, "Be careful how you talk to yourself, because you are listening."
Oh, I love that.
Did you know? I don't know what the percentage is, but do you all have inner dialogues? Do you two have the inner dialogues?
Non-stop.
Yes,
sometimes
absolutely.
several at once.
Yes.
Do you know some people don't have that?
Really?
Yeah,
Some people genuinely, there's
Really?
a percentage of people in the world, I don't know if we're in the minority or the majority,
Right.
but some people, I think we're probably in the majority if all three of us have it, but some people in the world don't have that. I find that mental. What do they think about? Because all I think about is my little voice. Sounds like a Black Mirror episode.
I love chatting to myself.
When I was a kid, funny side note, I used to think I was a teacher to a school, to a classroom of kids, and my inner dialogue was the teacher telling the kids. But I spoke last week about how I'm not so sure I'm the nicest to myself internally. I feel like I compartmentalize really well. I've said that loads. If you know me outside of the podcast, I find that I'm generally quite happy-go-lucky. I'm generally quite positive. I'm chatty. I'm passionate. I will die on as many hills that I think I need to die on as possible. I'm one of those type of people. But I don't think many people would say that I am negative, down, or not a nice person to be around, which I think is a positive thing for me to say about myself. But the reason I'm prefacing it is because that's not the type of person I am to myself. And if I'm perfectly honest, that's not the type of person I am inside, generally, ever.
I love this. We are breaking through the shell of Ryan now. This is brilliant.
But I've always been that way. I can't remember a time where I was positive about myself in a way that meant something. And so I was thinking about it the other day. I watched the darts world final. I watched a lot of the darts this year. But if you didn't watch it or you don't know about it, a 17-year-old won the world championship this year. Luke Litley, you must know that name, especially if
I've heard.
You'd have heard that name somewhere in the last 12 months. And he beat somebody that is questionably the best the darts world has ever seen. Phil Taylor's won 16 world titles, but Michael van Gerwen has won like the most titles anywhere ever, or something silly like that. He's unbelievable. Not many people would disagree with that. He's top 2, top 3 of all time. And he beat him. And not only did he beat him, he absolutely bashed him for the first half of the match. I think he was like 4-0 up in sets. If you don't understand darts, they do first to 3 legs, first to 7 sets in the final. It's a bit like tennis, Joe, but you halve the number of games you need, so to speak.
Okay.
And yeah, he's absolutely bashed him. And I thought to myself, that kid must say some unbelievably positive things to himself. And I'm not sure I could think of any that I would class as being genuinely positive. If I try and be positive to myself in scenarios, right? If I take the time to step into it and say, no, don't be hard on yourself, be nice. That inner dialogue bites back and says, "You sarcastic little fuck. You don't mean that." And
Wow.
that's the problem. I try and be nice, but that inner dialogue bites back and goes, "You're not being nice. Don't do that. That's not the person you are." And it's a really hard cycle, I find, to break out of, and I don't know how to break out of it. It doesn't affect me outwardly. I'm not coming here as a cry for help about my mental health or anything like that. I feel like I'm the same person you knew 6 months ago, a year ago, 18 months ago, right? I just either I don't listen to the voice, which is hard because it's always there, um, or what it does say, I rationalize it in a different way, and I find that hard to explain as well. So, um, I think I mentioned this last week. I play pool and snooker, right? I'm generally quite good at pool. I think I said that last week. If I've got a big shot or I've got something that I need to do that's tough or difficult, a lot of people, professionals or professional snooker players and things like that, would say to you, you need to positively G yourself up, um, be ready to do what you need to do. Think about your rhythm or your action or whatever you have to do. You'll probably think about it with Joe, with tennis, Joe. I need to nail this serve, this backhand I need to hit really well, or whatever. You think those things. That little voice in my head isn't saying that. It's saying, don't fuck it. Do not fuck it up. That's what the voice in my head is saying. You're going to have to tick the 18 plus box for this, please. Sorry.
Okay. Good.
I never
This
tick
is
that
real.
box
This is
whenever
raw.
we
I love
swear
this.
or not, and I've never
You
got in
know.
trouble for it. So
It's good and real, raw.
The voice in my head is like, do not mess it up. Do not mess it up. And if I do mess it up, then it's like, you fucking idiot. Told you that's going to happen. That's what the voice generally will say. And if I do the right thing, the voice in my head goes, finally, you proved me wrong. It's never, ever, 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 ever positive. I could get the CEO of my business come to my house, shake my hand, and say, "Here's a £500,000 check for being the best employee I've ever had," and the voice in my head would go, "Only 500k. You're worth a lot." And that is just the voice in my head. It isn't me. It isn't the person that I portray or that I am or what I try and bestow onto people. That is what the voice in my head tells me. And sometimes it's really hard to escape it. Well, in fact, I find it impossible to escape it. So, because I can't escape it, I'm not really the best person to talk to about how you can really reaffirm those things, right? So I thought, WWLD, what would Lee do? So
Nice. I like that.
I put it into ChatGPT.
I both love that and hugely fear for you at the same time with that stuff.
I threw it into ChatGPT, and there's a few things here that I'll go through as we talk through things like that. But what do you guys think? Well, what's your experience with your inner monologue? How do you find those scenarios?
If you don't mind me starting on it, Joe, I'll go.
Go on, go
First
on,
of all, like I said, when we were talking last week, and we had to kind of hurry the end of it. People will have heard my hastily extra tagged on recording on the end when my bad timekeeping let's run out of time. But I made a note when we're talking because we had the "be kinder to yourself" conversation, which obviously is inspiration for, and I made 2 notes. One was, this is a subject, and genuinely, hand on heart, I was ready. If you guys joked a bit more and said, "Lee, it's your subject," I was going to do this. And I was even minded. I thought, do I give Ryan a heads up? This is what I want to talk about in case he doesn't want to talk about it. Or do I do it in the podcast because it's a more genuine response when I ask him about it? And you've just come out and been so open about it, which I love. And I'd love that.
I've got nothing to be embarrassed about because
not
nobody
in
hears
the slightest bit.
nobody hears the voice, but apart from me.
No, but you're talking about the voice, which is
maybe.
It's and it's great. And I'm not saying it's because you would or wouldn't before or anything else like that. It's just really good that you're this open about, because it's deeply personal, and what
Yeah.
it's doing. If I was just to give you my thoughts on this, a lot of which is what you've just said there, and that you aren't kind enough in yourself to do it. Because the second note I made is I want to regularly check in on this with you during the year. That's one of my things for this year, is to see how you're doing, because as you get older, it's a lot easier to reflect on your life and see change and understand change. When when you're younger, you're just in, as I was your age, you're just in the moment. And times, to me, a year isn't a huge amount of time conceptually, and to you it will be a lot longer, because I remember what it was like when I was younger. And I think when time's longer, it's harder to see the change than when it's a lot quicker like it is now. It's just, and that might just be the way my brain works. So I wanted to help you reflect on your change, because like we talked about last week, you're not seeing it, but you've just come out with it, which is great. But what I'd be doing is challenging you, because basically it's a mechanism to say, challenge the way you think, challenge the way you think, challenge the way you think, challenge the way you think. And you've just vocalized that. You've just said, I am challenging the way you think. I think, not you think, I think, which is fantastic. So it is good that you're out there, because it's tough to challenge yourself. It's one of the hardest things you're doing. And not only are you doing it, but you're talking publicly in front of a huge audience about this right now, which is really, really good. And this is how you change it as well. The reason for labouring on that is, again, different techniques of things, but I'm a big fan of neuro-linguistic programming. And with that, the steps to it, the first thing is understanding how your brain works, what your triggers are, why you do what you do. Because once you understand that, you can change it. You can change your triggers. And then actually, once you know how to change your triggers and you understand the technique, you can start to understand how other people think and notice their triggers. And then either, if you got in to do it, help reshape their triggers if it's something they want, or you just know how to get the best out of your interactions with those people because you understand those triggers. And you right now, you've just explained your thought process in huge detail. So you really understand what you do. And that's a step to then understanding why you do it, which is a step to changing how you do it on the things you want to. So to your open question of what do I do with this, you've already taken the first massive, the biggest step is the step you've just taken. And if you're conscious of it and you reflect on yourself and you keep reflecting and you look back and you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't have done that, you're then building those triggers to change the way you think and the way you do things. And so you're doing it now. And I think the more we reflect on this year at various stages, that it will just start happening, and soon it will start happening without you even realizing it. But the conversation you've just had with us, which you've obviously had with yourself before this, is, I would say it's step one, but it's not. It's like you've just taken 50 steps out of 100 and now you just got to do the other 50, which will be a lot smaller and a lot more incremental. So it's fantastic stuff. And for I've been with it, same as you, and I've talked about this in various podcasts before, I was in my 20s, I was certainly my late 20s, huge pessimist. It started off just that I was in my little bubble that I lived in, and I didn't believe big things could happen. So, big promotions of work, big achievements outside of work, etc. Whatever these things were, it wasn't on my cards. I was just poodling along in my little life. And then I became more of a pessimist, that when stuff was happening, this will go wrong, this will go wrong, this will be terrible, this isn't going to work. I really lived that. And then various things that happened, for the quick story first, I'm now the opposite end. I am, and I nicked this phrase from someone else on the podcast I listen to, I am the eternal optimist. Nothing is going to go wrong. Even when stuff goes wrong, it hasn't gone wrong, because here's how it will get better. That's where I am now. When people like certainly in work, when I've got to do like risk logs and stuff like that, I'm terrible with it, because my brain doesn't.
You don't see a risk.
There's all I see is the solutions to the problems before I've even thought about it. And I really have to step back, and it's a thing I really lean on to talk with other people about, to think about step one before I'm already on, but this will go well, and this will go, and I'll do this, and I'll do this, and I'll do it. We talked before we hit record, didn't we, Ryan, about something I'm doing at the moment, where I'm just going in like, this is going to be great. Against everything that's telling me it won't be, and I've gone through that cycle, and a lot of it is lots of little changes where I'm like, no, I want to do this, or I want to be like this, or I've seen people like that and taken on advice from what they've said, and kind of how I got there. My last little bit before I let Joe get a word in edgewise on this is, and it is, this is a work thing. Person who runs our company told a story that really resonated with me, and I put it down to one of the fundamental moments where I shifted from negative to positive. And he was doing roadshows and he was telling stories about life, and he was at the time, from whenever it was years ago, him and his other half were trying to buy a house, and they, this was a big house. I'd say big. No, I don't know. I know nothing about the house. All I know was it was a financial stretch for them to get the house. So I'm filling in the right details myself. That's the story. And he said his other half was really, they were going through the process, and she was really worried. She's like, "Look, I'm not even sure we can afford this. What do we do? How are we going to pay for this? How are we going to do this? Should we be doing this?" And his response to her was, "We haven't even got the mortgage yet. Let's focus on getting the mortgage. And once we've got the mortgage, let's focus on how we pay the mortgage." And the lesson was break it down. This is backlog your life. This is where all of this sort of stuff comes from with me. And he said they did it and they got the house, and it was a stretch. But, they let rooms out to students during the summer. Things like they did loads of. Once it was there and once they had to make the payment, they found a way to make the payment. But he said the risk was they psych themselves out of even getting the mortgage if they focus too much on this. And he's like, so just one step at a time. Every problem is solvable, and just focus on the one in front of you and that really because a lot of my worries were, how do I pay the mortgage, not how do I get the mortgage? And I really took that on board, and that's where I started, as you know from me, Joe, let's break it down to steps, let's take it bit by all comes from that. So there's a real pivotal moment. It's not like I walked out the room a different person. That just gave me a direction and changed. It's the same for you. Like I was saying there, just focus on who you want to be and challenge yourself, quite often retrospectively when you're not, and look at people who are what you want to be. And it's not mimic them, but take the little things from it that you see that are what you want to be. And you'll do it. There's no doubt in my mind that you will. Right, I'm done on my passionate ramble now. Jose.
I love this conversation. Just to say, I think, Ryan, this is awesome what you just revealed, because as I've seen you grow, I think this is one of those other milestone moments that I've seen from you, being honest about that and being brutally honest about what's going on. So I think the question you asked is, do you have it? Is that the sort of, it was, wasn't it? If we go back to what you were saying, do you have that voice? And what's your experience with it, right?
What's your experience with your inner monologue, really? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll let you know. I just wanted to give it a quick shout out to Frizzle who's on here. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I want to get us to lots of Frizzle. Thank you so much. Cloud9, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And also Sophie who joined. But Cloud9 and Frizzle really trying to boost the likes. So thank you so much for doing that on the live. I wanted to give you a bit of a shout out.
I think before you start, if you knew me professionally before you knew me on the podcast, or you knew me socially, you'd think I'm the most confident or arrogant person that there ever was. And I don't understand how people can think that when I know what my head tells me about me. Am I throwing caution to the wind, and am I putting on a bit of a front? I don't know. At this point in my life, I don't know. I've been this way for so long that I've twisted myself into doing the exact opposite of what that inner monologue says. I think arrogance is probably a bit too far. I'm definitely a bit sure of myself. I'm probably quite a confident person, but that doesn't, to me, how can I be confident when the thing that's meant to G me up and push me up is the thing that's not trying to pull me down? Because that's not what it tries to do, but it nitpicks. It nitpicks at me all the time. It's always at me. Bah, 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 bah. And it's that I find that tough to understand, how I can be outwardly so up and so positive and so good, but but in me I'm at myself all the time. It's odd. I find myself odd. It's a weird. I don't. Maybe everybody's like this. Maybe nobody's like this. I genuinely just don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. So I've had something similar. It's not the same as yours, Ryan, because we're different people. But that's when I suffered my mental health. That's what drove me to my mental health, I think. Because I think I mentioned in the podcast, didn't I, that when you said to me earlier today, or earlier in this podcast, you said, everybody's got this voice. Well, I actually had the other opposite thought when I first was having these chats with myself. I thought no one had a voice and only I had this voice. So when I had this mental health issue, my mum bought me a book, and I mentioned this before, I think, where it was called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And in that book, this is when I discovered how I could start to do something about it. It said, you have something inside you called the chatterbox. And they were referencing the voice in your head. And I went, oh my God, this is it. So like you, what you've just done is you've expressed that you have it. And that's the very first step, like Lee said, that's the first step of acknowledging it, because then that's when you can start, to actually vocalize it, to know it's happening. So when I was, like you, Ryan, when I was in, a leader in the businesses that we do, I would take a break and I would go to the bathroom and just lock the cubicle and just sit there and just have those thoughts being your shit, your crap, your rubbish. But as you said, like, when I come back out of there, you would never have guessed any of that, because I would be portraying an outside persona that, hey, everything's great, when it absolutely wasn't. And that's what led to my downfall, because I didn't address it and I didn't have the capacity to deal with it. So that's part of the reason why I think it happened. I have to sort of analyze it now. So I have had it. I now have it. Now what I can tell you about it now, because I've done so much work with it. I've had my counselling, but coaching and what I fill my life up with, i.e. all the personal development, all the inspirational videos, all that stuff has now helped. I don't have that voice. The voice I have now is really encouraging. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, because when I play tennis, you referenced Paul, I play tennis, right? And you said, oh, Joe, you probably say, oh, hit a good shot, all right? What happens is I hit a shot and then I say out loud, almost what my voice is, that was shit. And then I go, oh, hang on, I need to reframe that. And I go, oh, I just did my best. And at the end of each tennis practice, I'll say to myself, I lost a few sets, but I did my best. And you know what? You did all right there, and I give myself a pat on the back. And now when I do things, like when I hit any goals, like the goal to hit, for instance, TikTok 10,000 followers, right? Before, my voice would say, you're never going to get that, blah, blah, blah. So you'll never achieve that. Now I get, okay, what are we going to do then? What's the first step? Like Lee was talking, what's the first step? Right, just got to do regular videos. It's like almost like now helping me to generate solutions rather than working against me and putting me down. It's actually really quiet in there. And now I do meditation, I do my journaling, and now it's super quiet. And when I need to ask a question, it helps me rather than undermines me. And now I can safely say, like, it's taken a long time, but now I don't really have it. Sometimes it pops up like saying I'm playing a shot, but then I'll quickly, it's now, oh, hang on, I'll do my best there. It's great. I'm not lying to myself. Hey, it wasn't a great shot. But I did my best. I'm not purposely trying to hit the ball out, or I'm not purposely trying to hit the ball in the net, but it's still not shit. I'm just doing my best. Yeah. Okay. Wasn't the best shot, but I'm doing my best at that moment. And that's how I encourage myself. And I always reframe all those things, right? So, yeah, I just love this conversation, because I think a lot of people suffer this. And actually, today I did a video on self-image, and I talk about that exercise we did. Remember, Lee? Where look in the mirror, look into your eyes and say, I love you, and see what happens.
Yes.
I encourage everybody to do that, because that is a test of where is that voice at now? Because that voice will either go, what you're talking, or whatever, or it'll go, hey, I love you, right? Go on, Ryan, you can say, sorry.
It would laugh at me.
Right, yeah, there you go, right? So that is a real good litmus test as to actually, do you really love yourself, as in a kind way, or do you still have this challenge of appreciating who you really are? And you're just a human being on planet Earth trying to do your best. And what you don't need is something or someone pulling you down. You would not, the things you're saying to yourself right now, you wouldn't say to your best mate, would you? Like, you wouldn't. No. So why on earth are we saying this to ourselves? Like, ourselves. Why on earth are we saying?
I agree. I completely agree.
Yep.
But it isn't downtrodding the person I am. So to me, it doesn't matter what it says. but then that's a slippery slope
Yeah,
as well,
don't
because
make
if I,
excuses for it. Don't
yeah,
start pairing back on what you
because
said earlier.
I think what you said about playing the shot, Joe, and you're trying your best, and and that I completely am on board with that. It would laugh at me. It
Yeah,
would, if I said that to myself,
yeah,
it'd go, shut up.
yeah,
But you've got to
yeah,
keep challenging it. That's what you've got to do.
Yeah,
yeah,
That's how you
because
get there.
and
yeah,
in no way do I have, and I want to preface it again. In no way do I have uh, poor mental health, and in no way am I asking, is this a call for help or anything like that? In no way at all. But I just don't know where to start because it won't listen. It wouldn't, even if I wanted to, it would not listen. It feels like it's just completely out of control. And it maybe these are the steps to try it, and I will, as you've suggested. And I've got some tips from ChatGPT that we're going to run out of time for. But
But okay, I'll say on that note, just to say, we will. I want to carry on this conversation again next week
yeah,
because there's so much to talk about here, and I think the next bit is the your statement of it will laugh at me. We could do a whole show with that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Talk your bit.
no,
I
you're
didn't want
right.
to
No,
cut
you're
you off.
right. You're right. You're right.
I've got a couple of bits here. There's a thread I saw on Twitter which ties in with this really well with a couple of advice bits on it, which I saw. So this is from name is life coach Laurie Bischoff is her name. You may recognise the surname Bischoff because that's a hugely important person in the world of wrestling, which I love. This is his wife who does life coaching, and because I listen to his podcast, I hear bits from her. So, and it just popped up top of my newsfeed on Twitter, and she gave reference to a book that she was given by her mum when she was younger, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity by Catherine Ponder, I think it is, and she just listed off on a thread a load of quotes from it, and two of these are really important with this. And I kind of want to get them in before we move on to deeper dive on this over the weeks. But number two is your thoughts shape your life. And it says your thoughts are instruments for success or failure. What you think about it, what you think about most, aka dwell on, is what shows up in your life. If you want good stuff, dwell on good stuff. Cultivating prosperous thinking leads to prosperous results, which I think ties exactly what we're talking about there with things, because it's what are you talking about for yourself in your head. And the second one, I really need my glasses on, by the way, guys. I'm really struggling here without not is daydream with purpose. Your imagination is so incredibly powerful. Spend lots of time visualizing the best version of life. It's like planting seeds. And I've referenced this before, I think, with you before, Joe, on this, and well, both of you when we're on podcast, is sometimes when I have a lot going on, my brain gets really busy with all this stuff that's happening and I'm in the moment. And when it used to be like if I was going for a drive somewhere, it's an hour and stuff, especially on the weekend, where all the clutter's getting out of my head, my brain would get really creative and it would start running away with ideas with itself. And I find that's really important, is especially like in the showers one when you think about stuff. But quite often, if I've got something I'm working on or a project or something, just starting a thought about that and letting it run and visualizing what could happen and the positives from it and stuff like that. Again, I find really, but it's training your brain to think in this way, which we can talk a lot more on. But just because I'd seen that this week and it really resonated, and I think they fit perfectly with this. And this is someone who's a life coach now, and these are lessons they took and they implemented. And I think you're starting this exact journey now, Ryan, which I think is fantastic. This being at the point to have this conversation and actually for yourself being able to talk about it and document it. I think this is going to be like my story. This is one of those things where you're going to say in years to come, that was me, but blah 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 happened. Whatever happens over the next few months, and you'll be telling people about this. I think I've got no doubt.
yeah. Because it's going back to your quote, Ryan, isn't it? Is be careful what you talk to yourself about. You're always listening. So
Yeah,
no
I
matter,
love that.
so you are
Yeah,
in some way, right, subconsciously listening to that.
you're shaping
So
your
this is
world.
powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
I
on, Lee.
think
You saying?
No, that's it. I'm just jumping on what you're saying. You're shaping your world with it because I think the quote
Yeah.
sums up your whole thought process right now perfectly. Sorry, go on, Ryan. Go on.
I was going to say, I think if I thought about how I am at work or professionally, the voice doesn't really come out. It's only when I'm not busy or when I'm not trying to balance four things at once, as all of us do when we're working, that it then has room to. It sounds like I've got schizophrenia when I say that, but it then comes back out and rears its head is probably not the right phrase, but that's when I can hear it more, if that makes sense. Professionally, I actually think it's not that bad. It actually says if somebody, a man came to me about 18 months ago and said, look, I want you to start this new team. He may or may not be on the screen. And I think you'd be really good for it. And at the time, I remember having that conversation with him, and I was like, yeah, I could do that. But if I was out of work and you said something like that to me, I'd be like, nah, don't be silly. It's just weird how the environment and who it is that you're
Yeah.
talking to me, affects the monologue's response to what people and how I see things.
Yeah.
Weird. It's weird. It's really weird.
It's really
this
interesting,
journey
actually.
you're on with these thoughts, though,
Yeah,
which is this is it, and you're at the exploratory stage now, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good, really good.
There's a really good exercise in a book called oh my god, what's the book called? It's a spiritual book, but it's a great book. Anyway, I can't remember what it's called right now. I've lost it. But what it does is just listen to the voice, just listen to what it's saying, but just don't say anything back. Just listen. And what happens is when you say, "Oh, you're just no good," it then goes off and just talks about shit. Just goes off randomly, just talks about everything. So it's almost like a mad person in there, just talking about random crap. Like, and it's like you would not even spend 5 minutes with that person because it's just what you're talking about. Like, if you actually logically listen to that voice, it's just like you wouldn't even sit next to that person. You really move away from them. So it's really interesting when we really look at it. You would not associate with that person at all, or the thing, right? Because if they were, you just move away from it. Like you wouldn't sit next to them. You go, well, it's absolutely crazy. And I'll try and remember the book. Oh, it's Untethered Soul. I've just got it up there. I just looked up there. It's up there. It's The Untethered Soul. It's a brilliant exercise. And I thought, oh, let me try that. And, not so bad now. But if you do try and really listen, it does. Hey, what's due to this? And it just goes off randomly. It's weird. But no, you're right, Ryan. I think what Lisa, I always echo what Lisa said, is the fact that you've volunteered is great. And just quickly, 11K likes, Frizzle and Cloud9. Thank you so much. Just going to say that.
Oh, huge thank you for
That
that.
11K, now
Yeah,
12K, just gone to 12K apparently. I can't see it's my frozen, but it's 12K. Thank you so much.
We love it. Right, so I don't fall into bad timekeeping. I'm going to wrap us up now. But Ryan, if you're comfortable with it next week, and guys, I'm saying this so that when I forget next week what we're going to talk about, it will just laugh at me. That is the conversation because I really want to dive in on that. And I've got some thoughts on it. Jose, I'd love to know your thoughts. Ryan as well, as you're in this. I think it'll be a great conversation for us to dive into and share some thoughts on it, and hopefully, give some inspiration to people out there who are feeling or thinking the same right now about this. Because I say this for me, this journey you're talking about is the most important one mentally I've gone through in my life. So yeah, I think
it's good to know that it's not just me, because I think in your own head you think that nobody else thinks like this.
And this is why I think this is great, and hopefully people out there are realising that as well. So we thank everyone out there for supporting us, listening to us. Love your feedback at Listen to on Twitter. I'm going to retweet just when we're done this, that thread I just talked about. I'm going to retweet it on our Twitter so people can see that there. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I forgot my little monologue. I'm so excited about this particular conversation.
I love it.
But yeah,
Jose Noya Inspiration Nation into your Google machine.
there we go.
I do it every week. I do it every week. You're not here, mate.
Ryan's been so enjoying it. He's doing it so often now. He knows what
There's
it
a lot
is.
of weeks I've not been here. Right, everyone out there, we thank you. Ryan, to say fantastic subject. So I really appreciate you opening up on that. And Jose, appreciate you as well, and all the great input to the conversation, because you are our inspiration guru here, and I'm the man who tries to press the buttons and sometimes get it right, sometimes get it wrong.
Definitely
I think we survived this one, so I'm all right. All that's left, I count us down. So 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation.
Inspiration Nation.
Catch you
Catch you
guys
guys
later.
Guys, later.